I remember a dinner at my grandfather's house. The table was worn from decades of meals, yet it carried more warmth than any modern dining room ever could. No phones, no distractions, just steam rising from the soup pot and stories echoing from the walls. He paused, looked at me across the table, and said something I'll never forget. "Boy, if your house is loud, make sure it's with laughter, not conflict." At the time, I nodded out of respect, but the truth of those words hadn't settled into my bones yet. Years later, after a series of painful arguments with my partner, some loud, others silent, I found myself sitting alone, missing the very thing I once took for granted. Not peace, not comfort, but connection. That moment at my grandfather's table resurfaced like a whisper from the past. It wasn't just about avoiding conflict. It was about creating harmony, choosing daily to build a space that breathes peace. The Stoics knew this truth intimately. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor philosopher, once wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." And if the quality of your thoughts determines your life, then surely the quality of your family determines your peace. Today, we're not talking about techniques or tactics. We're talking about sacred habits, rituals of attention and intention that create not just homes, but sanctuaries. These 7 Stoic-based habits aren't quick fixes. They are life philosophies disguised as daily actions. If you follow them, your family will not just survive this chaotic world, they'll thrive within it. But ignore them, and you may find your household becoming a battlefield where no one wins. So if you've ever felt like your home is drifting, like the warmth is fading, or like you're speaking louder but being heard less, then this message is for you. Because the world outside is noisy, demanding, and unforgiving. But inside the walls of your home, that should be your refuge. And it starts with you. Let's begin. Habit 1. Be proactive. Rule the inner kingdom. In every home, there comes a moment, a slam of a door, a sigh too loud, a gaze too cold, when we're tempted to point the finger outward. Why won't they change? Why can't they just understand? But the Stoics invite us to ask a braver question. What within me needs mastering first? To be proactive in your family is not to control others, it's to govern yourself. Epictetus said it best. It's not events, but our judgment about them that hurts us. Your child's tantrum isn't the problem. Your partner's silence isn't the enemy. The battlefield is always within. Think of a father, quick to anger. He shouts to regain control, but all he builds is fear. One day, mid-yell, he sees the way his son flinches, not in defiance, but in shame. And something breaks. Not in the boy, in the man. That night, he sits alone, questioning everything. And he remembers the words of Marcus Aurelius. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. From that moment, he decides not to suppress his emotions, but to transmute them. Anger becomes awareness. Reaction becomes reflection. To rule your inner kingdom is to wake up earlier, not just to beat the traffic, but to beat your own chaos. To breathe before you speak. To pause before you punish. To respond with clarity instead of reacting from ego. It means being the thermostat, not the thermometer. You set the tone. Your calm becomes contagious. Your discipline becomes direction. Your presence becomes peace. Imagine a home where your family doesn't fear your presence, but finds rest in it. Not because you're soft, but because you're solid, steady, stoic. So today, don't wait for them to apologize. Don't expect them to change. Become the stillness in the storm. And in doing so, you'll find that the greatest way to lead your family is to master yourself. That's the first habit. And now we move deeper. Habit 2. Begin with the end in mind, the family code. Every ship that drifts eventually crashes. And every home without vision becomes a place of survival instead of growth. If you don't decide what kind of family you want to become, life will decide for you. And life, as we know it, is rarely kind by default. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If you don't have a consistent goal in life, you can't live it in a consistent way." This truth applies to empires and households alike. Your family needs more than rules. It needs a reason, a vision, a shared North Star that guides your choices when stress, fatigue, or disagreement cloud the path. This is where the second Stoic habit lives. Begin with the end in mind. What is the culture you're creating behind closed doors? Is it one of trust or tension? Do your children know what your family stands for? Do you? A couple once sat down after a rough year of fighting, financial pressure, and growing distance. They didn't start with therapy. They started with a question: what are we building here? Not what are we fixing, but what are we becoming? That night, they wrote a mission statement, not for business, but for home. It read, "In this house, we speak truth with kindness. We honor time together. We grow, even when it's hard. We forgive quickly, and we return, always, to love." That single document changed their decisions. Instead of fighting over chores, they asked, "Does this honor our peace?" Instead of parenting in survival mode, they parented with legacy in mind. And slowly, their house began to breathe again. When you begin with the end in mind, you stop parenting out of impulse. You stop relating through assumption. You stop living on accident. You build a family code, not as a cage, but as a compass. Because one day, your child will face the world. And if you've done your job with intention, they won't just carry your features. They'll carry your values. Not because you preach them, but because you live them. So take time. Write your code. Speak it often. Live it daily. Let it become the architecture of your atmosphere. A Stoic family is not just disciplined. It is defined by what it stands for, by what it endures, by how it returns again and again to the path. The second habit isn't about planning your life. It's about planting your roots. The wind will blow, but a rooted tree bends, it doesn't break. Let's keep going. Habit 3. Put first things first. Prioritize peace over pressure. The calendar is full. The dishes are stacked. The notifications never stop. And somewhere between chasing deadlines and checking boxes, something sacred quietly slips away. The warmth in a child's voice, the softness in a partner's eyes, the laughter echoing through a home that once breathed with life. We are praised for productivity, but at what cost? Seneca warned us long ago. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Putting first things first isn't about being efficient. It's about being aligned. What's the point of a well-managed life if the people you love feel mismanaged? What good is success if your child's face no longer lights up when you walk into the room? In one home, a mother hustled from dawn till dusk. She provided, cleaned, accomplished. But her son, quietly withdrawn, never felt her presence. Until one evening, she canceled a work call, sat beside him, and just listened. No agenda, no multitasking, just presence. His words came slowly at first, but then they poured out like a dam had broken. And when he finished, he said with teary eyes, "I missed this." She did too. That night became their new ritual, undisturbed, unhurried presence. We must learn to prioritize not what's urgent, but what's eternal. To choose connection over convenience, peace over pressure, ritual over rush. Design your day not just around tasks, but around touch points. The breakfast table becomes sacred when phones are down. The bedtime story becomes a bond when you read not to finish, but to feel. The walk around the block becomes healing when it's filled with silence or shared dreams. And for those who feel like it's too late, that the distance has grown too far, I offer this. Peace doesn't return through grand gestures. It returns through consistent choices. A 5-minute check-in, a shared meal, a deep breath before a response. The Stoic life is a deliberate life, and a deliberate family is one that knows. The most important things rarely scream for attention. They whisper, and we must quiet the noise to hear them. So ask yourself tonight, not what did I get done, but who did I truly see? Who felt loved because I paused? Because at the end of your life, the trophies will gather dust. But the moments, those tiny, sacred, ordinary moments, they will shine. Put first things first, and let love rise to the top. Habit 4. Think win-win. Let love be the victory. We often think strength lies in winning, in being right, in standing our ground. But the Stoics remind us, true strength lies not in conquering others, but in conquering the need to dominate. In choosing harmony over pride. In letting love, not ego, have the final word. Epictetus said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." And what greater arena for provocation than family? A careless word, a misunderstood silence. Suddenly, it's not about solving a problem, it's about scoring a point. And love is lost in the shuffle. But what if conflict didn't have to mean combat? What if disagreement could become discovery? A couple, both headstrong, found themselves locked in nightly battles. each trying to win. One night, after yet another fight over finances, the husband stepped away. Not in anger, but in clarity. He wrote a single sentence on a sticky note. "I'm on your team." He left it on her pillow. She cried when she found it. Not because it solved everything, but because it reminded her they were not enemies. They were allies. To think win/win is to believe that peace is not a compromise. It is a shared victory. It's parenting not with control, but with cooperation. It's asking, not commanding. It's choosing dialogue over dominance. In a Stoic home, every member matters. Every voice deserves to be heard, not because every opinion is correct, but because every soul is worthy. Even in disagreement, there is room for dignity. Think of a father teaching his child to negotiate bedtime, not as manipulation, but as mutual respect. Or a partner who says, "Help me understand your view," instead of, "You're wrong." These are not signs of weakness. They are evidence of wisdom. When you embrace the win/win mindset, you stop keeping score. You stop weaponizing past mistakes. You start building bridges instead of walls. Because in the end, winning an argument but losing connection is no victory at all. So in your next conflict, pause, breathe, ask, what does love look like right now? Sometimes it will mean yielding. Sometimes it will mean holding firm with gentleness. But always, it will mean protecting the relationship over your need to be right. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." In a home shaped by Stoic love, you don't mirror the chaos, you return to calm. You don't fight to defeat, you speak to understand. Let love be the victory. Habit 5. Seek first to understand. Before you correct, connect. A child slams the door. A partner goes quiet. A parent raises their voice. Our instinct: to correct, to fix, to lecture. But buried beneath every reaction is a story not yet heard. And if we rush to judge before we listen, we miss the moment where healing could begin. Epictetus taught, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." This is not just a lesson for conversation. It's a philosophy for connection. Imagine a teenager struggling in silence, acting out in school, withdrawing at home. His mother, exhausted, scolds him, until one night she pauses and sits beside him. No accusations, just presence. And she asks gently, "What's been heavy on your heart?" At first, he shrugs. But when he sees she's not waiting to pounce, the words begin to trickle out. Pain, pressure, fear of not being enough. That night, nothing got fixed, but everything shifted. To seek first to understand is to offer safety before strategy. It's to enter a moment without needing to control it. It's to listen, not to respond, but to receive. This isn't easy, especially when emotions are high. But Stoicism calls us to something higher: emotional discipline. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question: what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize?" Humility opens ears. Ego shuts them. When you pause to understand, your child feels seen, not managed. Your spouse feels held, not fixed. Your parents feel honored, not dismissed. Understanding doesn't mean agreeing. It means making space. It means believing there's more beneath the surface than the behavior you see. Picture a partner who forgets an anniversary. Easy to snap, but behind the forgetfulness might be stress, shame, or distraction born from deeper struggles. Instead of punishment, what if the response was curiosity? Is everything okay? That simple question might open a doorway no anger ever could. In a Stoic home, connection is the priority, even when correction is needed. Because once someone feels heard, they're far more likely to hear you. So the next time conflict arises, before you correct, connect. Sit, breathe, ask, listen, because what you're really saying is this: I see you as more than your mistake. I care more about you than about being right. And in that sacred space, where silence meets sincerity, something extraordinary happens. Trust grows. Hearts soften. Change becomes possible. Seek first to understand. And you won't just resolve issues. You'll restore relationships. Habit 6. Synergize. Honor differences without conflict. In nature, the oak and the reed share the same soil. One stands firm, the other bends. Yet both survive the storm, not because they're the same, but because they're rooted where they belong. A family, too, is not meant to be uniform. It is meant to be united. Synergy doesn't mean sameness. It means seeing strength in our differences and choosing respect over rivalry. Seneca once said, "We are waves of the same sea." The Stoics knew that our essence is shared, yet our forms vary. A Stoic family embraces those variations, not with resistance, but with reverence. Think of siblings. One quiet, bookish, sensitive. The other bold, loud, adventurous. In a home ruled by ego, these traits clash. The loud child is labeled disruptive. The quiet one, too passive. But in a home guided by synergy, those same traits become complementary. The bold one inspires action. The quiet one models reflection. Both are needed. Both are honored. Consider a couple. One thrives on plans. The other dances with spontaneity. If they try to change each other, tension brews. But if they learn to lean into each other, one becomes the anchor, the other the sail. Together, they move. Synergy is the wisdom to say, "I don't need you to be like me. I need you to be fully you, so we can be fully us." This habit is hard in a world that glorifies conformity. But a Stoic knows, harmony is not found in control. It's found in coexistence. It's found in curiosity. A child doesn't need to become their parent's shadow. A spouse doesn't need to adopt every habit or hobby. What they need is the space to be seen, heard, and valued as they are. Synergizing begins with listening deeply, not just to words, but to energy. It means letting the introvert retreat without guilt and letting the extrovert express without shame. It means designing rhythms that allow both structure and flow, quiet and celebration, rest and movement. And when conflict does arise, and it will, synergy invites us to look not for who is right, but for what is real. To see behind the disagreement and ask, what are we both protecting? Often, it's the same thing: love, safety, worth. We just express it differently. So stop trying to mold your family into one shape. Instead, make space for every shape. The puzzle is beautiful not because all the pieces are alike, but because they fit together in their uniqueness. Honor differences. Celebrate contrasts. Let your home be the place where no one has to shrink to belong. Because a family that synergizes doesn't just coexist. It expands. It breathes. It lasts. Habit 7. Sharpen the saw. Build a stronger family by resting it. A dull blade can't cut, no matter how strong the arm that wields it. And a weary soul cannot nurture, no matter how deep the love. In the Stoic life, strength is not found in endless exertion. It's found in wise renewal. The same is true for families. Rest isn't weakness. It's repair. And if we do not pause to sharpen the saw, we'll eventually break under the weight of our own striving. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look." But how often do we actually look? Not just at ourselves, but at the health of our home? At the pace of our family life? Many households live in survival mode, every moment accounted for, every hour pressured to produce. But pressure without pause erodes presence. A family that never rests together slowly forgets how to be together. Imagine a couple, both driven, both exhausted. Their conversations turn transactional. Their laughter rare. One weekend, they left their phones behind and took their kids to a cabin. No schedule, no screens, just nature, quiet, and board games. At first, the silence felt awkward. But by the second day, something opened, smiles returned, stories flowed, warmth rekindled. They hadn't fixed anything dramatic. They had just remembered each other. Sharpening the saw means more than taking vacations. It means designing life with rhythms of rest. Evenings without tech. Mornings with slow coffee and eye contact. A Sunday walk. A shared hobby. A meal cooked together without rush. And this applies not just to families, but to each soul within it. Parents need space to breathe. Children need room to dream. Rest restores empathy. It refuels patience. It renews joy. In a Stoic household, rest is not laziness, it's strategy. It is the firebreak that prevents burnout, the stillness that restores clarity. It's how we return to each other without the fog of fatigue. So ask yourself, when was the last time your family felt replenished, not just entertained, but truly renewed? What would it look like to build sacred pauses into your week? Not as an escape from life, but as a way to savor it. Because when the soul is rested, the heart speaks softer, the mind listens longer, and the home becomes not just a place you live, but a place that lives within you. Sharpen the saw, not once you burn out, but so you don't. That is how a family remains not just strong, but whole. What if your greatest legacy isn't your wealth, your work, or your reputation, but the peace you leave behind in your home? Not the big things you said, but the way people felt in your presence. The silence between words that didn't scream, but healed. So often, we chase validation in the outer world while neglecting the quiet crumbling within our walls. But what good is applause if your home feels like a battlefield? What victory is it to rise in the world while your family falls into distance and misunderstanding? The Stoics taught that all external things are fleeting. Seneca wrote, "What fortune has made, fortune can unmake. But what virtue builds, endures." And there is no greater arena for practicing virtue than within a family. That is where your philosophy becomes flesh. That is where your daily choices shape not just your life, but the lives that follow. Rehooking this journey isn't just about the habits. It's about the legacy. The generational ripple of one person choosing calm over chaos, clarity over confusion, virtue over volatility. A grandfather who held his tongue instead of lashing out. A mother who apologized after raising her voice. A child who learned to express instead of explode because they were shown how. These aren't just moments. They are echoes, passed down, embedded into memory, woven into character. When you live the Stoic way at home, you're not just managing behavior, you're modeling integrity. And integrity, unlike rules, lasts beyond your presence. It lives on in how your children treat their partners, in how they speak to themselves in the dark, in what they carry into their own homes someday. So take this seriously, not with pressure, but with purpose. Your family doesn't need a perfect version of you. They need the grounded, honest, growing one. The one who admits when they're wrong, who listens when it's inconvenient, who rests when they're weary, who stays. Because one day, the noise of the world will blur, the trends will fade, the accolades will be forgotten. But they will remember this. You were there. You were steady. You were home. So let's stop trying to fix everything out there and start building something sacred in here. That is your legacy. Let's now move into the climax of this journey. The breakthrough realization: rule the home, rule the world. A man may command armies, build empires, speak in stadiums, and still fail at home. And what is that, truly, but the quietest tragedy? Because in the philosophy of the Stoics, the true test of mastery is not found in the public eye, but in the private storm. Not in applause, but in presence. Not in domination, but in devotion. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, could bend the fate of nations. Yet in his journals, he wrote more about his inner battles than outer victories. His meditation wasn't on conquest, but on character. And character, he believed, was forged in small, consistent acts, in the family, in silence, in the places no one applauds. This is the breakthrough. The home is not a distraction from your greatness. It is the proving ground of it. Think of the countless men who rise in the world only to return to broken tables, disconnected children, and weary spouses. Think of the women who give and give until they become strangers to themselves. Think of the children growing in homes full of shouting, silence, or shame, learning that love is loud, unstable, or conditional. But now, imagine something else. A man who, after years of emotional distance, decides to sit down with his son, not to lecture, but to ask, "What do you need from me right now?" A woman who puts down her perfectionism and simply holds her daughter as she cries, saying, "You don't have to be strong for me." A child who learns that home is not a place of performance, but of permission. Permission to feel, to fail, to flourish. This is the revolution. To rule the home is not to dominate it, but to dignify it. To lead not with fear, but with virtue. To practice patience as an act of protection. To model courage not in grand gestures, but in quiet responsibility. Because if you can cultivate peace in your home, you can carry peace into the world. If you can forgive in your marriage, you can lead with compassion. If you can show up daily for your children, you can build anything without abandoning what matters most. The Stoics did not separate philosophy from life. They lived it in every interaction, every word, every silence. And so must we. So rise, not just in status, but in spirit. Let your home be the empire you guard first, the sanctuary you defend, the legacy you leave. Because when you rule your home with wisdom, the world cannot shake you. So now we've walked the road together. The habits, the stakes, the pain, and the promise. But what now? What do you do with everything you've just heard? You take a breath. You step forward. And you choose to begin. No fireworks. No dramatic declarations. Just a quiet, internal vow. I will no longer be passive in the shaping of my home. Because greatness in families doesn't come from dramatic gestures. It comes from daily decisions. From how you speak when you're tired. How you listen when you disagree. How you repair after you've failed. How you show up, again and again, with eyes that see and a heart that stays. The Stoics weren't emotionless. They were principled. They didn't avoid connection. They mastered it through virtue. And they knew that true peace was never found in isolation, but in alignment with self, with truth, and with the people we choose to walk this life with. As Seneca said, wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness. What if your home became the first place that received your kindness, not your leftovers? Imagine waking up tomorrow and speaking with intention, eating together without the weight of silence, setting boundaries without anger, apologizing without ego, listening without needing to fix. That is how you begin. That is how families are built. That is how homes become havens. So if this message stirred something in you, if it reminded you of what's worth building, do me one small favor. Like this video so more people can reclaim their homes. Subscribe if you want more Stoic-inspired tools for real life. Because this isn't about me. It's about us. A generation of people rising up to break cycles, to restore warmth, and to choose peace where chaos once lived. Let's become the people our families can anchor to. Not because we're perfect, but because we're present. Start now. The world will try to make you chase everything else. But when you make your family your first fortress, you don't just change your household. You change the world. And that is the most stoic thing you could ever do.